declare this meeting open, the Community Plan Advisory Committee. And the time is 5:31 p.m. And we'll open with a roll call. And who will call out the names? Would you call out the names? Thank you.
See. Committee Member Tova Callender. Everett Dowling. Lei Huanani Huddleston Hafoka. Vernon Kalani Cow. Mike Moran. Cody Nemeth. Wayne Nishiki. Jennifer Sullivan. Brian Ward. Vice Chair Kanahele. And Chair Weltman. And Chair, we have 2 members excused, Tom Blackburn Rodriguez and Keoki Feltzer. So you have 11 members present.
Thank you. So 2 excused, we do have quorum. Bilina mai ina lala o ke komike o lalo a o kaiaula no ka papa o lala no Maui hema. A bilina mai no hoi e kapoe o ke ena ho o lala o ke kalana o Maui. A me ka lehu o Maui ne. I kuka kako i ke ahi i na ano hali ana pono no Maui hema. So we're going to open, as we did last time, with an introduction, this time by Jennifer.
Hello, everybody. Well, that's loud. I'm Jennifer Sullivan. As many of you know, I was born in Canada, in a small town between Niagara Falls and Toronto, about the same size as this island. I come from a very large Italian family that migrated to Canada just over 50 years ago. So I grew up with a lot of special vocabulary and interesting lunches. So when I decided to come to Maui, my grandparents sat me down very concerned. Why are you going to leave everything you know, your whole family? You can't go that far away from us. And I looked at them and I said, I'm going for the same reasons why you left your small town and your family. So I came here and so excited, and everybody kept telling me, the island will accept you or reject you. And so I'm so blessed that I'm still here. The island has accepted me time and time again. And I knew that my time would come to give back. So in 2017, when my husband finally, after 13 years, got his permit to open Hawaii Materials Recycling, happened, he asked me to help him with operations and managing the facility. I thought, this is it. This is how I'm going to help. This is how I'm going to give back. So I spend my days educating the community, looking for concrete, asphalt, rock, and dirt, ways to encourage people to recycle and to use our facility. So we're here in Kihei. We are truly a recycling facility. We use R1 water to manage our facility. We run our scale house on solar power. Everything we receive is recycled and produced and used to produce finished aggregate product. So for instance, the roundabout, the asphalt coming off the road came to us, and now they're using the UTB, the base from our recycling facility, in the road. So that's what I do every day. I encourage people to recycle and use a sustainable, responsible approach to whatever they do. Production, growth, all of that is inevitable in South Maui and across the island. So if we can be a resource for people to do it responsibly, that's what I'd like to ensure everybody knows, that we're around and available to them. So when I look at this community plan, I think of how can we be developing and growing this island in a responsible and sustainable way. So for instance, tonight we're talking about traffic. Wouldn't it be great to have that road, Mauka of Piolani Highway, to divert the trucks that are doing the right thing, that are minimizing the carbon footprint by coming to our recycling company? All those landscapers with their trailers full of landscape debris going to the recycle, the green waste. Wouldn't it be great to have them off the Piolani Highway and South Kihei Road onto this alternative road? And these are the ways that I'm thinking as I'm looking and reading at this amazing plan, that it's really important for us to go down that path of responsible, sustainable growth. So that's how I'm looking forward to working with each of you and a little bit about myself. So I encourage everybody to recycle. That's the big message. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. So now the heat's on. Who's going to be next? There we go. Brian will be next. Last time we decided up front that we would take 2 breaks of 10 minutes each at 6:30 and 7:30. We pretty much did the first one, but the second one we just powered through because we're right in the middle of something exciting. So I suggest we still aim for that, and we'll see how we do. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. I have a couple of questions for the planning department. First is there any progress or any report on the ability of the community to do remote viewing and testifying?
Thank you. Good question. It's in progress. I'm hoping to have that link on the next agenda, and then we'll hopefully have the link up and running. We just need to get some equipment and kind of figure it out. If not, we're going to try to do it in the following weekend, or I'm sorry, meeting. So.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, at the last meeting, wanted to invite Kumu Kalekua Ka'eo as a speaker about the background, the colonialist impact on South Maui, and I wonder if he has been contacted.
He has not been contacted. I would contact him next week. The agenda item that would be most appropriate for would be the Wahi Kapuna, protection of the Wahi Kapuna, which is in January, is the meeting date for that. Yes, Vernon?
I would much prefer to have it earlier on because I think it's a background, provides a context for much of what we will be discussing, not just the Wahi Kapuna. If he's available and if it can be fit in with other agenda items.
Chair.
And mostly for the benefit of the audience, could someone again explain what the locations of our meetings will be for the next, say, 3 times?
Vernon wanted to say something. Would you like to recognize him?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Vernon.
No, that's okay. So that Wahi Kupuna is in January, right? So, I believe that, we have like Tanya Lee Gregg and others from this area. So it's set for January. So, can we wait or you like try get, because I think maybe we can get Kalekua during that time in January together, or maybe we can push that up, but I would go ask like Tanya if that would be okay if we can push it up. Because it was Kalekua and addition, yeah, if possible.
Another thing is that my experience is that you're going to need to book him pretty far in advance and then keep reminding him, otherwise we won't have him. So I don't know what his schedule is either. So regardless, I think it's important to contact him early. But I would prefer to have the presentation early because I consider it not just a context for Wahi Kupuna or Wahi Pana, but for just the nature of South Maui and what's happened to South Maui.
So can we contact them or you have to contact them? Contact Kalekua. Who have to set that up?
If you have contact with him, it would probably be beneficial if you did.
Yeah, we get them. For early, right? We're going to do this earlier. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, and that was it for the preliminaries. I'd like to let the audience know that it is preferred that you testify when we get to a particular item on the agenda. However, if you are not able to stay until that time, you can do that. You can do your testimony at this time. So I'll open to the audience for any testimony that you would like to offer at this time. And I see Buck Joyner would like to offer testimony.
Well, if you guys can't hear me, there's a problem. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank everybody for participating in this. It's a gruesome, gruesome task. I was on many, many committees. I was on the board of directors of the Kihei Community Association for 12 years. I was chairman of the Traffic and Public Safety Committee. I was chairman of the Maui Traffic Safety Council, on State Traffic Safety Council, Upcountry Highway Planning with Don Malcolm going back many, many years, etc., etc. Lots and lots and lots of participation in this kind of a thing. My biggest regret is that the North-South Collector Road. 1989 is when I started pushing on that. That's when the concept came out. And I talked and I talked and I talked. Draw the line on the map. Just put the line all the way from Suter's Store all the way to Wailea. Plan it 4 lanes, build it to 2 lanes, expand it when it becomes necessary. I worked on that for over a decade, and you know where it is right now. We've still got just a little tiny section of it, and portions of that have been broken up so they cannot be used. With houses built in the way, the condo there. The roadway was narrow. So that's a real problem. Okay. And I regret it. I couldn't fix it. Sorry. In your planning, as you're talking about tonight, one of the things that comes up, you will maybe hear that there are only 2 roads out of Kihei for evacuating Kihei. That is incorrect. There's probably only 2 reasons for an emergency evacuation. One would be a flood, the other one would be a wildfire. If we have a flood, South Kihei Road becomes absolutely impassable. We have 1 road out of South Maui, Pi'ilani. If we have a wildfire, it is probably going to be on the Mauka side of Pi'ilani Highway, and the police will shut down Pi'ilani Highway, and we have 1 road out of Kihei. Think about that. Also, many of those places, neighborhoods access only South Kihei Road. There's no way for them to get to Pi'ilani. There are a lot of people that are trapped in those areas. How do they get out? Okay, one of the ways is if you can't drive, maybe you can walk out. And that's one of my primary points tonight. I will be over here with a model demonstrating, showing you about a walkway under Waipuilani Bridge, primarily for the access of students to the high school to meet the requirement of the Land Use Commission put on 10 years ago. But also, the important thing is those people that are trapped in central Kihei, they need to get to high ground. Where are they going to go? The best place will be the new Kihei High School. Very high elevation, lots of rooms, auditorium, cafeteria. That's where people want to get to. But there will be no way to get to it on the highway because that highway will be absolutely gridlocked. You cannot get there from here. It'll just be a big parking lot. But if we have a walkway under the Waipuilani Bridge, people from Central can go up there and get to the school. That's very important. So I'm going to be back over here when you have your breaks and when you, at the end of the meeting, I'll still be here and I want to show you. Okay, one final thing. I have, everybody probably has the 1998 Kihei Community Plan, Kihei Wailea Community Plan. And hang on. Some people also have the 1989. I have those. Traffic Management Plan, State Upcountry Highway, now we come to one
30
that
seconds.
most of you have never seen. This one is a 701 document. Has anybody ever seen this before? Michelle, you've seen? And I doubt anybody else. This is 1970. This is the plan from 1970. Okay? I have that back over there. You have clean hands, you can touch it. And here's two. That even Michelle hasn't seen. These two are from 1959. Okay? One of these is for Kihei. Excuse me, it's the land use for the island of Maui. This was put out, this was put out before statehood. This document was put out 5 weeks after statehood. These are historic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Buck. Am I on? Yeah. Are there any questions from the members, or clarifying questions from the members to the testifier? Daniel?
Hi, Buck. Thank you for being here. I don't know if you can hear me. Buck. Buck, this is, thank you for your testimony. Thank you for being here. And thank you for that historical background on the North-South Collector Road. You said that when they decided to do the North-South Collector Road, there wasn't actually a delineated line where that road was going to be built, like we have Liloa Road right now. Much of Liloa Road is the North-South Collector Road, but going south or going north from Liloa Road, was there a line that connected it all the way to Wailea originally?
I think the original was done by Tetsui. Yeah. I think the original was done by Tetsui. Okay. Supposed to turn it on for him. I got it. Okay. And I don't remember, it was a two name. And they drew the line, which was sort of their idea of where it should go. But until the county said, this is it, they had to get that line and put it on there officially. And I could not get that done. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just curious if the county said this is the line, how is it that the line got broken up by land use development and it wasn't kept intact? Do you know? Do you have an answer for that, or any knowledge?
I can't answer why lots were granted to build a house on where we wanted to build a road. I can't tell you why there was this much space allotted, and then when a developer came in, it got squeezed down to this size. That's all behind the scenes, and I have no clue how or why that was done. It was impossible for me or any other member of KCA to influence those things that happened.
Thank you. Any other questions, clarifying questions?
Question.
It's Wayne.
For administration, what about happened to the North-South Collector Road? How did it disappear?
I think that was just answered by Buck.
You know, there were pieces of it where the developer
Who took it out?
Pardon?
Who took it out?
We would have to go back bit by bit and see the decisions that were made at that time, almost parcel by parcel or project by project. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know who the developers were. I don't know who the mayors and public works directors were at that time. Just in general, there were probably times when the county made a decision either to acquire the land for the right-of-way or not. And if the county was not going to acquire it, then they didn't have a basis to keep it from being used by the private landowner. So it's one thing for the county to say we're going to put a road here, but then the county has to follow up on that and condemn the land or acquire the land or accept dedication of the land. Why that wasn't done, I don't know. I mean, I can imagine circumstances where it wasn't. But it is like what Buck is describing, that if you're going to do this, then you really have to do it. Drawing the line on the map is the first step, but then you have to follow it up and, like I said, acquire the land, plan it, fund it, design it, build it. And that acquisition never happened. And that has foreclosed a number of opportunities to make the road all the way through. I know that is a real headache for Public Works Director Jordan Molina, who's here tonight. He might be able to speak of that. He won't be able to explain why those opportunities were foreclosed, but he can explain what their efforts are now to do as much as they can with what is remaining.
So that was not really a clarifying question to Buck Joyner. And I have highlighted exactly this for discussion when we get to item D, which is where we discuss this. So I don't think Buck can answer that. And I think, like Director McLean said, it may be someone in one of the departments. Any more clarifying questions for Buck, not for the planning department? Thank you. Thank you, Buck. And any other testimony from the audience?
Thank you. It is time for a bypass road, but the problem is, as soon as you put that in, development goes up. And no easy answers.
Okay, hearing no others who want to testify at this time. Oh, there's one more? Okay. Please state your name.
I just wanted to talk about, because what he's talking about, I've been here a long time, with flooding on South Kihei Road. Last month, I think it's been about a month, you guys put in some new, well, not you guys, but somebody put in some new things in the middle of the road right down there by High Tech Sports on South Kihei Road, and the rain came and it flooded. And it was the first time for Kanani to flood, and we were trapped. We couldn't get out either way. There was logs in the road, the water rushing down. And then we also watched cars run into those unmarked mediums that were put in the road. They don't line up with the crosswalks on top of that. So whoever put them in, they didn't line up. But it was bad to see the cars running into that part of the road, just to give some feedback on that, being here a long-time resident and watching South Kihei Road flood over and over. A lot of us need that middle part of that road to drive through when it's raining hard and the sides get flooded out. So something to take in concern by not putting in that medium like that was done, because it really, I saw 3 cars run into it and they got trashed on that way. And the second thing is, it's like he was saying, that it made me really think about how vulnerable we are trapped in Kihei. If there's a tsunami, hurricane, anything like that nowadays, that roundabout disaster that's going on with the traffic buildup, it takes us 45 minutes to get from Kanani Street past, anytime leaving after 3:30 out of Kihei. and it shouldn't be like that. And when the roundabout gets in place, it's going to be even worse, because you can't have a roundabout, crosswalk, and kids driving through that. And I just take that from experience where I went to college and they put in a roundabout. There's an accident every single weekend. And it was a much bigger roundabout to where this roundabout is smaller and cars can't fit if you take the space of the big trucks we have here and try to put the spacing and the amount of trucks that need to go, the amount of cars distancing going through that roundabout. Very dangerous. Highway, roundabout, and pedestrian crosswalk. Those three things don't go together. So just think about that in your planning. Thank you.
Find questions for the testifier?
Okay, got it. Thank you very much for your comments. I'm not sure if this is part of the protocol or not, but should we not be having our testifiers state their name and we record it? Because I think that adds value to what you're saying, and I really appreciate you coming and taking the time to talk, but I don't know if this differs from testifying at other county council hearings and so forth. Karen, is that something that we require? But I would love to have her name.
My name's Joan.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
No, I want to
sorry.
make sure. No, it's all good on your part.
Nervous.
Yeah.
Nervous out here.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And then I did have a question, but maybe it's through your question to ask the planning department if they can answer. But in regards to the things that they're building on South Kihei Road that is by Auhana Street, I saw just the other day.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you were asking a question or stating a comment, but I think it would be good if anybody knows what those are, because I too was curious what that was. So I just want to know if you're asking a question and if somebody could answer that.
Okay. They just kind of popped up overnight, and then we had that flood. And unfortunately, we have on camera 3 cars, and we had to tell the police officer where our street was blocked, hey, you need to go down there and let those cars know that they just put in this 5-inch upgrade on South Kihei Road that people probably don't know is there, and they were running into it. But it's just a huge safety liability, especially until we figure out these roads of people needing that middle section to drive just for safety and not their cars get, washed with the water. So I don't know who put it in. It just popped up. No notice, no nothing. Literally, I walk the streets every day, and it's like, whoa. Oh, good note to see. Gotta watch it. And it doesn't even line up with the sidewalk. The crosswalk, sorry. Doesn't line up with the crosswalk. So I'd like to know who put it in. I'd like to know why and what's it for. But definitely need that middle lane not to be raised.
Thank you. So I wasn't sure if we were supposed to be making sure that they can get an answer, maybe not here, but a department or something. I just don't want you to walk away and not be told what it is after. I know we may not have time, so I'll defer to Karen maybe.
Yeah.
You can ask clarifying questions of the testifier, but then after the presentations, you can ask the presenters.
Yeah, I think it'd be better to do this as part of the discussion about transportation rather than as a clarifying question. Any other, Daniel, has a clarifying question for the testifier?
I had a question for the last testifier. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to know that those raised islands, when the road was flooded, were they actually covered with water so that you couldn't see where they were?
They were non-visible, and we watched 2 cars run into them, probably saved them from a head-on collision. And then we saw the cop came to stop people from driving down there. So then we let the officer know, hey, you gotta go put cones. They put these new things in the road down there. And he goes, what are you talking about? And I said, oh, well, just don't drive your car down the middle of the road, but right by Island Surf, High Tech. And I think there's one right by Kihei Cafe, right before there. They put in 2 of them. But the weird thing is they don't line up with the crosswalk. So I really, don't get that at all. But I don't know. Just thought that might just kind of help us out down there, especially when you're trapped and then you really start looking at things and you're like, ooh, just kind of help you guys out where South Kihei Road really needs that middle lane to kind of let the cars get through the traffic so Pialani's not jammed, both ways aren't jammed up. Anything else?
Is this another question for the testifier?
Karen, now that these concerns have been brought up, is it your responsibility for long-range planning to deal with a drainage problem, CIP, whatever?
It can be included in the community plan, what kind of drainage you guys prefer, and it directs the departments, the policies direct the departments when they're reviewing what kind of infrastructure to put in. But it would be the responsibility probably of Public Works, who will be up here later, and that would be a great person to ask the questions of.
Be prepared.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Is there another testifier? State your name, please.
Just very briefly, I'm Larry Stevens. Following up on Buck's comments on the collector road, I would note that if you are traveling south on Kihei, when you get to Okalani, the road ends, and just about 50 yards down the hill, Wailea Alanui picks up. The land between Wailea Alanui and Kihei is undeveloped. So it would be a relatively straightforward thing to collect Wailea Alanui directly to Kihei, and you'd have a smooth connection between those 2 areas. Thank you.
Any questions for the testifier? Clarifying questions? Is there any additional testifier? Please state your name.
Lauren Bertel. I noticed there's a lot of people being killed on Walaka and Kihei Road, and we begged someone to take action regarding lighting. It curves, and nothing's ever been done. And people are being hit when they crosswalk. Again, this is Walaka and Kihei Road. And most recently, I'd like to also discuss something because I talked to Ellen. This is Hua Place, and I'd also like to add this. I'm sorry, the acoustic seems a little echoing, so I hope you can hear, but should I stay on that topic or jump to the next? I said, should I stay on topic about transportation, about Walaka Street and Kihei Road? We've had quite a few people get hit, and actually Joan was monitoring the traffic when a person was recently hit in this SUV, and there was police there, but it just seems like a really dangerous road. Something needs to be done about walkers. I mean, people leave Walaka and go to the beach, and it's just, I begged the county to do something, and something needs to be put in, whether it's a blinking light, but people walk and have been injured, and also killed. There was a man killed at Kalama Terrace, which now brings me to the next topic, if you don't mind. On Hua Place, 4 beautiful trees were, the life force of the trees were taken down. I know it's private property, as they say, but something needs to be in place regarding the trees beyond 6 inches in diameter and older trees. These were stately trees, and I just was grieving on November 4th when the birds came home and everything was taken down. So it is private property, but I just want to put something in place that would emphasize before cutting the branches and like completely, taking the whole half of the tree down, And numbers, so I just want to, like before, it was not a trimming to get back to that state that it was before November 4th. It would take about 5 years. I mean, it was just, luscious branches. So those were two topics about Walaka Street, getting something done on the walk, something there, and private property, getting a permit in place before just decapitating. Would you like to add anything, Carmela? Because she's a gardener.
I appreciate this testimony, but it's for the next agenda item, which is next week. This
really?
week you need to stay on transportation.
You mean the trees or the transportation?
The transportation is this week. Next
Okay.
week is the parks and trees.
Okay.
And you can also submit written testimony if you cannot make the next meeting.
So then the transportation is qualified today for Walaka about the walkway. That's acceptable. So we'll stay on that then about the walkway, about crossing the street. There's a lot of short-term renters and something needs to be in place. Any questions about that? Anyone want to add? That's pretty serious. Something needs to be put in there. Lighting, a stoplight, I don't know.
Yes, Brennan?
Yeah, I agree with her. And I know this is something that we're going to add to our policies because South Kihei Road is lack lighting for all the crosswalks, and pedestrian crossing or even walking on the side of the South Kihei Road, and especially that side of Lipoa. You're planning improvement the south side of Lipoa, but no too much improvement on the south side of Lipoa. But overall, yeah, we're going to be doing something about this for sure. Lighting and crosswalk safety. Mahalo.
Can we pause to fix the sound?
Sorry?
Can we pause to fix the sound?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Recess for technical issues.
Please also just turn off your mics if you're not using them during conversation. Thanks.
Members, please have a seat. Probably should have said in the beginning where the restrooms are. Okay, let's begin again, so please keep the order. Excuse me, begin the meeting. Are there any more testimonies? So again, you'll be able to testify when we get to the item, but is anyone who has to leave and can't testify when we get to the item, they can testify now. Yes?
Aloha. I'll just try to make my testimony pretty short now. My name is Rory Frampton. I'm a private planning consultant. I do a lot of work with the ranches, with the lands above the highway between Ohukai and the MRTP Park. Just about the north-south collector road. Sorry. The north-south collector road, my understanding in terms of the alignment was there's an old neighborhood near Kanani Place that was built before the concept or before the line was drawn on the map. So there is an area where some houses might need to be condemned. A lot of the new developments that have been happened since then have all allocated rights away for that. I know Kinaleo Place is kind of a tight area. I'm not sure how they're going to get through there. But one of the delays that happened was it was planned for 4 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction, and the state was my recollection was the state was very strongly adamant that it should be 4 lanes, but the community only wanted it to be 2 lanes with bike paths. They felt that the 4 lanes would be too big of an arterial going through the community, and I know that was a hiccup at one point. I believe Brennan Morioka was a state transportation director at that time. So that was a concern. And then just in terms of the Amauca bypass, things to think about. If you really do a big, long Mauca bypass that's separated from the community, the state and federal funding for those types of projects are very hard to come by, and I'm not sure the reality of a road like that being constructed. What's in the South Maui Land Transportation Plan now is a shorter route that actually goes through the urban area, the urban growth area as identified in the Maui Island Plan. And so that's something to think about, as doing a multimodal transportation corridor within the urban growth boundary area. And I think you can get some more public-private partnerships. But that road's definitely got to be a priority, and I think the government's got to be very much involved in moving that along and funding that roadway corridor. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for the testifier? Daniel.
Hi, Rory. Nice to see you.
Hi, Daniel. Hi.
Rory, are you aware of any map that has Mauca Bypass Road on it?
There's
a line on it or something on a map.
There's a couple very conceptual lines that have been drawn in the past. The most detailed line I've seen is from the recent state land transportation plan, and they actually have a more of a defined corridor through the urban area, through the urban growth boundary. Yeah, and I'm sure they can talk about that today, later on, or tonight.
Thank you. Any more clarifying questions? Thank you.
Question. Hey, Rory, what is that map number you're talking about? Could you turn your mic on?
The map.
That map you're talking about, does it have an ID?
Yes, it's the South Maui, I think it's the Land Transportation Plan, but it's a recently adopted transportation plan that the state of Hawaii did.
Planning, do you guys have that map? Long range planning? Am I talking to deaf ears? Do they have such a map that Rory mentioned?
There are different iterations of what a Mauca road would look like above Pi'ilani Highway. We do not have it here with us, but I can get that map.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha ahiai, ko maho aloha. Good evening, my friends. First of all, Wayne Nishiki, I'm going to ask you, you were given a binder, and the question that you just asked, the answer to that is in your binder. So, to not really waste the time of the county and the community, myself, auntie, uncle, study your thingy before you ask your questions, okay? Okay. Sorry if I'm a little rough, but this is Kihei community plan that we're looking at. Not Lahaina, not Wailuku. This is Kihei. Every one of you should reside in Kihei to represent us, and I know most of you do. Some of you don't. And I'm really sad that the mayor appointed you to represent us. But that's that. Okay. Regarding the transportation, sorry. I mean, I'm kind of adamant about that. You know, people like just bullshitting. And it makes me really mad. Because you don't even live in South Maui. But, okay, Z. Regarding the roads and transportation, first of all, I live in North Kihei side of South Maui. My house abuts the Haleakala Ranch, where my cousin leases to raise cattle. And right now, Haleakala Ranch and their board of directors are subdividing into 3 parcels, all the way from Kula, Ulupalakua, down to my house on Ho'olike, the corner of Ho'olike and Okai. Now, I'm the first to testify that where I live is a great place for affordable homes. I myself am a benefactor. I agree. When the county built their first county housing, my name was the fourth name drawn. 3 below me were Kanaka Maole, my niece, my nephew, and my daughter. So I'm very appreciative that they're subdividing. However, as we go down Ho'olike, the county of Maui is looking into giving a permit to the Hayes family, a developer, who bought the old Japanese mango farms on Ho'olike Mauka side. And I know you know where I'm talking about, baby. We used to play over there. And he has turned that into a farm for pollutants, trucks, and a lot of diesel engines right in a subdivision that across the street are children. These are hazardous material.
3 minutes. Can you wrap up?
Sure I can. I humbly ask all of you, when you look at the subdivisions and transportation, and when you look into providing permits for any development within the county of Maui, especially North Kihei, please look and be sure that these developers are not building truck and industrial areas with intoxicating gases and fumes that can hurt our children. In closing, what I say is, we, before more homes, need roads. North-South Selector Road has been in discussion in this community forever. Somehow, some way,
Zandra.
the community of Maui County Planning Department and the Commission does not see that with all the development that they want for affordable homes, we need roads to accommodate the children. And that is my testimony. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any clarifying questions for the testifier? Any additional testimony at this time from the audience? Okay, I'm calling the public testimony closed, and let's see. So we have a presentation with an overview of policies and actions. Should we do that first before the break? I think that's probably good. Thank you.
All right, the purpose of this presentation is to explain the difference between a policy and an action. Both are important, but only if they are put in the correct location with strong, easily understood, legally defensible language. Is it a policy or an action? Policies guide plans for development. Actions tell the county where to spend time and money. In the draft South Maui Community Plan, the policy and implementation framework are organized by 5 goals which support the plan's vision. Each goal has supporting policies and actions that work to achieve that goal. Each goal covers several topics to show the relationship between the different topics and the policies and actions needed to address the interconnected issues. Tonight we're discussing Goal 2.1, a complete, balanced, and connected transportation network. Community plans refine the county-wide policy plan and the Maui Island plan, reflect the unique characteristics of the community plan area, and enable residents within those areas to address specific challenges and opportunities. The community plans are focused on directing future land use, development character, and community design. The community plans do this through policies, implementing actions, and mapped land use. For the next couple of months, we will be focusing on policies and actions. We will look at land use starting in February. This is an example of how the draft South Maui Community Plan refines the Maui Island Plan policy. Maui Island Plan, Policy 6.2C, require new development where appropriate to integrate sidewalks, pathways, bikeways, and transit infrastructure into new commercial and residential projects while enhancing community character. South Maui Draft Plan, Policy 2.1.9, require new development, redevelopment, and housing projects developed pursuant to Chapter 201H, Hawaii Revised Statutes, and Chapters 2.96 and 2.97, Maui County Code housing projects to include facilities and programs that support connectivity, biking, walking, and public transit, whether constructed by the developer, the county or state, or a public-private partnerships. By specifying that in South Maui, new development and redevelopment and all affordable housing developments should include facilities and programs that support a walkable, bikeable, transit-friendly communities. This is an exemption to the code that developers often request for affordable housing. This policy is making it clear that this exemption is not supported by the South Maui, especially in neighborhoods where the workforce lives. This policy and action call out a project that is important to the South Maui community, the North-South Collector Road. And it is an example of how the community plan area can reflect the unique characteristics of that area. This policy would be used by planners when reviewing plans. So we have policy 2.1.10, support the completion of the planned North-South Collector Road, an adjacent multi-use path that will improve travel through Kihei and provide access to additional routes for emergency ingress and egress. This lets planners and developers know, for example, that the multi-use path is an important element of the North-South Collector, and that it needs to be designed to allow emergency vehicles access. It also lets planners know that those county-owned properties set aside for the road should not be converted to other uses. There's the accompanying action 1.13 to increase mobility options and reduce congestion in South Maui. Complete the construction on the Kihei North-South Collector Road and multi-use path, including the sections between East Waipuilani Road and Kaono'ulu Street and East Velikahau Road and Halekuai Street, and the section connecting Kanani and Auhana Roads and Liloa Drive. This tells the county South Maui wants time and money spent completing the North-South Collector Road. The policies and actions enable residents to address specific challenges and opportunities. This policy, 2.1.18, require the use of best management practices and green infrastructure to address stormwater runoff and drainage issues related to the transportation system. The policies lets planners and developers know that the South Maui values green infrastructure for drainage issues, even for the transportation system. While this action 1.13, plan and implement adaptation measures to address the impacts of sea level rise and increased flooding on South Kihei Road. Addresses a plan that the county needs to work on for a specific area of concern. After all, the policies and actions have been discussed. There will be a meeting dedicated to ranking actions. This is when CPAC says how soon the time and money should be spent by the county for various actions. It is important to have all the actions ready before priorities are discussed. When do community plans policies apply? According to Maui County Code 12.20212, development plans in the SMA, exemplified by this first photo, need to meet the community plan or apply for an exemption. South Maui has a unique situation where much of the region is in the special management area. The area outside the SMA is likely to fall under Maui County Code 18.04.030, which states, the director shall not approve any subdivision that is not consistent with the county general plan, community plans, state land use classification, and zoning. This policy and action speak to the road Mauka above Pi'ilani Highway that was brought up in your last meeting. These show how policies and actions work together to achieve the community vision. Policy 2.1.10, require development projects Mauka of Pi'ilani Highway to coordinate with the county and state on implementing a new multimodal transportation corridor spanning through South Maui to Central Maui, Mauka of Pi'ilani Highway, as identified in Action 1.14. Note, this should be, the accompanying action should be numbered differently. So the action 1.13, identify a new multimodal transportation corridor through South Maui to Central Maui, Mauka of Pi'ilani Highway, alerts the county that plans for the road need to be developed so the corridor can be identified and preserved through easements if necessary. So the policy directs planners when they're looking at plans to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the planned road, and the action lets the county know that they need to plan that road. Okay. This policy is a good example of putting good language in the wrong location. Policy 2.1.16. Promote transportation demand management strategies that shift commuter practices away from driving alone to reduce traffic congestion in South Maui. Strategies may include more frequent bus service, bus passes, creation of carpool lanes, employer-sponsored bus passes, increased parking fees, decreased off-street parking, and educational programs on the benefits of alternative modes of travel. These are not land use strategies, thus they are not something planners or developers are going to include in development proposals. This policy should be moved to actions with the Maui MPO as the lead. Tonight's agenda is to review Goal 2.1, a complete, balanced, and connected transportation network. The policies are found in Section 2, Policy Framework, and the actions are in Section 4, Implementation and Monitoring. For now, focus on the language of the policies and actions. The implementation schedule will be discussed later. Growth Framework, aka MAPS, will be discussed in February and March. Mahalo.
So I do have concerns about the use of policies in the South Maui Community Plan. And if you open your binders to Section 7 and then look up the general plan section, it says what should be in the countywide policy plan, what should be in the Maui Island plan, and what should be in each of the community plans. And it's pretty clear. It says on page 8 that the countywide policy plan should include a list of countywide objectives and policies for population, land use, the environment, the economy, and housing. When you then get to the community plan, which is starts on page 12, it says the plan shall include implementing actions, shall implement the general plan's visions, principles, goals, and policies. That's 280B.070 community plans, section A. And then if you go down to section E, it says each community plan shall contain, and then it lists all the things that should be in the community plan, and none of them is policy or objective. And then after that is the implementation program, and it doesn't mention them either. So basically, our county code is envisioning that we have a hierarchy where we set policy at a higher level and then implementation at a lower level. So in our community plan, we would have only actions, no policies. Now, there are still reasons to have policies in this plan, and I'm not entirely against them. But I do want to, and one of them might be that, okay, well, these policies, they're not actions, but maybe they'll still have an influence on what happens after that. But if you look at our 1998 Kihei Makena Community Plan, there are 105 policies there. Some of them have sub-items, so you could say there's more than 115, 105, but there's 105 explicit policies. At my reckoning, 56 of them have not been followed or implemented at all. 20 have been partially implemented. Only 5 have been followed or implemented. So I don't see that it has guided implementation or helped us. And then thirdly, then this kind of supports that. When I go to the county council to hear the report on implementation, only the actions are reviewed, not the policies. So there's no enforcement. There's no way for us to follow up on, was this actually implemented, or why are you not enforcing this, or how much has been implemented in the past year? Now the counter arguments would be that, okay, it's not required, it hasn't worked in the past. However, we're starting at a time when we've learned a lot about South Maui that was not known 10 years ago when the countywide policy plan was last updated. So we can add policies here which go beyond that, which more correspond to what maybe would have been adopted if they had known back then what we know now. I think that's valid to get these things that need to be updated. I think many of them should actually be actions. And I think that the more we can focus things on actions, the more what we decide here will be enforceable, as opposed to just statements of desire. So I want to put that out there because, like I said, I'm not entirely against keeping the policies. However, we should be aware that policies, they have a different purpose and they have not functioned in the community's interest in the last 24 years of the Kihei Makena Community Plan.
Thanks, Rob.
Yes.
We also had a review of the county code. So if we look at page 12, under 2.8 OB.070, community plans, it does say community plans shall implement the general plan's vision, principles, goals and policies. And then it does say each community plan shall contain the requirements set forth in subsection E. So if we go to subsection E and we look through those points and we come to point 5, it says a statement of planning standards and principles relating to land uses within the community plan area. So I think we can interpret that as policies. It also says a statement of urban and or rural design principles and objectives for the community plan area. And I think we can also interpret that as policy. So I welcome the discussion, but I think the planning department is still very, not concerned, but we see the role in policies in directing development for third parties, for developers, and actions are what the county can take forward over the 10, 20 years. But as the pace of development comes forward, within that time frame, the policies direct that development. So it's sort of like can happen quicker than maybe something that's in an action that might take a little bit more time.
I don't see that as having happened. If I look at the 1998 Kihei Makena Community Plan, policies such as protect the quality of nearshore waters by ensuring that land-based discharges meet water quality standards, protect all wetlands resources such as those at Kealia Pond and near Road C, and I can go on and on if you look at these in detail. So I like the idea, it's just I don't see that happening. And so could you explain how that's going to happen this time?
Yes, definitely. I think there is something in how we word the policies. We need to look at stronger wording. But yeah, we think there is a role for policies in this community plan.
If a planner is reviewing a planning document from a developer, they're not going to look at the actions to see what needs to be done. If it's not in the policies, it'll just be, and that is all of the plans from the 90s, I read them, I'm like, oh, there's great stuff in here. A lot of it's in the wrong place, or it has the wrong language, which unfortunately makes it easier to ignore. So make sure it's put in the right place with the correct language. And some of it depends on who's in charge as well.
Yes, Brennan?
Good example. So this paper that we have, why is it important? So, and this is something I thought about in the last 2 days. And granted, you know, I'm all agreeing to all this stuff, but what I see a lot here, you know, it's support, increase, support. Maybe we gotta figure out another word that you gotta do them, kind of thing. Which I don't know what a word yet, but we're gonna find one. So you know what I mean, yeah? Because over here is support. So maybe the support meaning we supporting something that might not happen, but we gotta add something that you gotta do them, kind of thing. That's my.
When I reviewed the 1998 Kihei Community Plan, of those 105 policies, there are 18 which I called vague. So I don't know whether they're done or not because it has exactly that type of wording like be in favor of or support or work towards or reduce. And so have we done it or have we not done it? So I'm really in favor of actions with very, very strong, being able to say, did we do this or did we not do this? But we're not going to resolve this entirely today, and I tend to bring this up again because I think I'm not the only one who feels that we need to figure out a way to make this plan actually have effect. And the people who did the 1998 plan, they were neither stupid nor evil. They actually were very smart and very forward-thinking, but unfortunately much of this was not implemented. So I am calling a 10-minute break. Let's cool down. Cody, other people, could you please have a seat? Wayne? Okay, will the meeting come to order? The next item on the agenda is beginning our first actual meet of the, I think, implementation meet of this whole work, which is the first section of policies and actions, which is a complete, balanced, and connected transportation network. And we will hear presentations by the Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Works, and the State Department of Transportation. So, and if anyone in the audience would like to testify on this, and especially what they've heard in the presentations, you can do that after the presentations. So who is the first presenter? Who is the first presenter?
Robin Shishido from the...
Robin Shishido, welcome.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Again, I'm Robin Shishido, Wade State Department of Transportation, Highways Division. Next slide. Next slide. So tonight I'll talk about, the project we have going on here in South Maui, and also talk about island-wide. I mean, even though we all live, or not we all, you all live in South Kihei, I mean, you drive all over the island, so I'll kind of give you an update of overall. Next slide. Right, so one of the bigger projects going on right now you all see is the roundabout being constructed by the new high school entrance. So this is actually a DOE construction project that's on our Piilani Highway. As you know, the Mauka lanes were completed September 19th, and that's when traffic was switched over on the northbound and southbound lanes on the Mauka side. And right now they're working on the southbound lanes, and that's expected to be completed about mid-December. And when that's completed, the roundabout will be fully open and operational. They'll still have cleanup work to do in the medians and the shoulders, and most of that will take place at night. And that's expected to be completed early next year, January, February-ish. If you go on our website, Maui High School, they did a great educational video on how to maneuver through a two-lane roundabout. You know, it's going to be the first in the state. And, you know, Maui, I guess, I don't know if we're fortunate or unfortunate to have it, that we can all get on it. Next slide. But I just wanted to walk through everybody on how the roundabout's going to work. We've been getting a lot of questions because, again, you know, it's going to be the first two-lane roundabout. So this is the traffic flow if you're headed northbound. So as you can see, there is a right turn auxiliary lane. So if you want to turn up to the high school, you don't have to enter the roundabout. So all of that traffic will be able to use that right turn auxiliary lane. If you want to continue to going north, previous slide. If you want to continue going north, you can use either lane, and you just flow through that Mauka side of the roundabout. And in the other direction, you would take the inside lane. So from there, you would just continue around the circle till you get to Kulani Hakoi, or even if you wanted to make a U-turn, you can head back south. Next slide. So similarly, if you're going southbound, you have a right turn auxiliary lane. So again, you wouldn't enter the roundabout if you're making the right turn. Southbound traffic, you can continue through on either of the through lanes. And in the other direction, you would take the inside lane, which you can turn up to the high school or, again, make a U-turn and head back north. Next slide. Coming out of Kulani Hakoi, you'll still have that right turn auxiliary lane as you do now. That's to get down, headed south, and any other direction, you would enter the roundabout to either go up to the high school or head north, or again, you could continue all the way around and head back south if you wanted to. Next slide. And finally, this is the traffic coming out of the high school. So on this one, it's two lanes coming out. One lane will turn headed northbound, and the other lane is again to go in any other direction, whether it's on Kulani Hakoi or headed south on Pi'ilani Highway. Next slide. And as far as the bicycle users on how they will navigate through the roundabout, so similar to any other location, they can use the through lanes, share the roads with cars, and take the same routes with whichever direction you're going. They can also, you know, utilize the sidewalks, dismount from the bikes, cross the crosswalks, and so forth if they want to head up to the high school. Next slide. As far as pedestrians, you know, a lot of it, that's a big concern, is how the high school students will get across the roundabout. So on the south side of the roundabout is where the crosswalks are to cross Pi'ilani Highway. And they will have a rapid flashing beacons that are actuated by the users. And these beacons, they'll be placed overhead, so it'll be real visible to the cars that are coming in. Also between the northbound and southbound lanes, there's a median that's going to have a small refuge, so students can also stop there. And within the auxiliary lanes that I mentioned, there is going to be raised crosswalks to also help slow down the vehicles as they're approaching or leaving the area. Next slide. Other projects coming up here in South Maui, the Pi'ilani Highway, Okalani Miki'oi traffic signal. So this is a long-time project that was required by development. And they just started procuring the materials, and they should be arriving here by the end of the year, and then construction starting in January, February. And it shouldn't take too long to get that traffic signal installed. So hopefully by February, end of February, it'll be operational. The next project is Pi'ilani and Maui Place. There's an uncontrolled crosswalk over there, so we'll be adding some lighting. We're about 60% design, and that one we try to get out by summertime, and it should be rather quick construction. I think it's adding, I want to say 3 or 4 streetlights to help illuminate that area. And then lastly, we have Pi'ilani Highway widening. Again, this was a long-time project. It was tied to the development there on the south side, and I think this project probably was from 2010, and it's kind of been an off and on project. More recently, it seems like it's moving forward again, and the developer, they have their roadway plans and design. I know they're going through the process of, you know, getting their development going. And with this one, We don't have a timeline on the construction yet, but what we are trying to do is, partner with them and to see how we can help with some of this roadway infrastructure costs and be able to, for the developer, provide more affordable housing. Kind of similar to what the county did with Waiale Drive extension up there in Waikupu. Next slide. And just some other island-wide projects we have. This is actually statewide. We've been putting in raised crosswalks at various locations, just slowing cars down. A lot of it will be at schools. So end of December, we have some coming in. Might go into early next year. We also have a reconstruction of Halekala Highway going Mauka bound on the concrete parts. So that one we'll be replacing and putting asphalt back in. From the last year's Kona Low storm, we have a ER project on Kekalike Avenue where shoulders eroded. Right now it's only open to one lane, so we'll have that start construction early next year. From the March flood, there was some bridge damage that was done in 2 on Hana Highway. Had some scours at the foundations. We'll get that going soon. And then on Honopi'ilani Highway, we just have some mostly guardrail replacement. There might be some areas where we close the gaps on the existing guardrail from Malaya to, I think it's about to Pomona Beach Park. And we also have Pu'unene Ave improvement projects. That one is currently out for bid right now. It's going to be a design build, so a contractor hires a designer and they kind of do it simultaneously. This project will widen that section from Wakea Avenue to about the intersection where it's only 2 lanes each way, so we'll add an additional lane each way, shared use shoulders, sidewalks, drainage facilities. And lastly, we have our Honopi'ilani Highway Improvement Project. So this is a project, we got a RAISE grant last year for $22 million, and we also got an earmark of $23 million. So we have $45 million in additional federal funding than what we typically get. This project's probably gonna cost, a neighborhood of around $100 million, but it's mostly realigning Honopi'ilani Highway from the existing bypass going to about Ukimehame area by the firing range. And this is to address shoreline erosion. I mean, anybody drives there, you can see the impact that it's had on the roadway. So that's about all I had. No questions? Oh, any questions?
Okay, start with Mike.
Good to see you again, Robin. Thank you for coming and explaining all these different things to us. My first question is at Maui and the highway, you mentioned lighting. Those are street lights or are they like traffic signals?
Street lights.
Street lights, okay.
Yeah.
I thought that's what you were saying. And back to the infamous roundabout, it's my understanding that the rapid signal lights are yield signals. So if I understand that correctly, that means a driver doesn't have to stop at that unless he sees someone telling him he has to have something to yield to. If it's ignited and a child crosses and a car is coming, even though that's blinking, he doesn't have to stop. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the rapid flashing beacons is more of a warning device to drivers that there is or potentially a pedestrian in there. But I mean, regardless if you have a rapid flashing beacon or you have a hawk system you're probably referring to or thinking of, I mean, by law, any vehicle needs to stop or yield to a pedestrian. So the rapid flashing beacons, I mean, it again helps warn the drivers ahead. The system is made that, if a hawk wants to, or if we want to put in a hawk, we can switch out the lights, switch out the traffic controller. As I mentioned, it's going to be overhead. But with the hawk system, once you activate it, then all directions of traffic stops. And so, everybody going through, you stop. At least with the rapid flashing beacon, like you mentioned, it's a yield. So if a pedestrian starts on the Makai side as they cross that southbound lanes, cars can continue to go through, help the traffic flow, and, just help both ways of pedestrians and vehicles get through.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Much of the input we have heard from the community is they feel this is not safe, that they would really prefer a hawk type where there's a red light that makes the car stop rather than a yield signal, which is telling only to yield. But you have to make the decision, your department has to make the decision, and you've made what you feel is best. So we understand that. You can't always get agreement, but I think we're all thinking as prime is the safety of the people crossing, not only the children, but the staff, and the fact that this school will be used at other times rather than just the two major crossings. Okay, I'll stop talking and give others an opportunity. Mahalo.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Wayne is next.
Good evening, Robin. You heard the statements from local residents in regards to flooding. Have you dealt with any, and we've seen flooding happening in South Kihei Road, the residential areas. Have you guys dealt with, are you going to deal with how the water flows down the mountain? Because we've had immense flooding.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Has there been a study
No,
in the construction of this roadway?
We have not done any study, and yeah, when December that Kona low came in, I mean, I think they estimated at being like a 300, 500-year storm, and our major facilities, they're designed for a 50-year storm. You know, South Kihei Road is, I'm not passing the buck, but it's county road, so I think Jordan can more speak to that as far as the flooding on South Kihei Road. But we have not done a study on Piilani Highway.
Okay, Daniel.
Aloha, thank you for being here. I wanted to ask you, clarify about the widening of Piilani Highway to 4 lanes from Kilohana to Wailaiki. And the design plans are 60% done. So if and when that happens, will it be done all together? Or it'll be done in phases? You do a section and then another section and another section. Are you anticipating the widening will take place all at once?
For that project, it'll be done all at once. There is another development, and I know I can't remember what intersection it was, maybe Kilohana, they did require like 900 feet of the northbound lane that they had to construct. So I know there's confusion about, you know, what the project was doing. So that was a separate project. But this particular one, it would widen from Wailaiki all the way up to Kilohana in one project.
So the other lead core widening section, does it depend on who's ready first for that to begin? If lead core is ready, they'll widen there. I mean, Wailea Resort Phase 2.
Yeah, so that one project that just had that 900-foot widening, they're dependent, I think, on depending how much housing gets built on their current development. Whereas the Piilani widening project, that one's, before they do any vertical construction, they need to have that highway widened. So it's tied to their development and what phase they're at.
One quick question. Did you provide this this PowerPoint to the planning department?
Yeah.
Was it uploaded for us? I didn't see it in the material.
I sent it this morning, so maybe it was a little late, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can we get it uploaded so we can look at it? Thank you.
I would like to point out it is pretty much identical to the one that's in the town hall, which was posted. Thank you, Robin. And who's our next speaker?
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Our next speaker is Mark Takamori.
Mark Takamori. Welcome.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mark Takamori. I am with the County of Maui Department of Transportation. We primarily oversee public transit. So I'm going to be doing a presentation on our Maui bus system and the services we provide within the South Maui area. So next slide. Okay, so in terms of public transit, we oversee 3 contracts, and the main contract for our Maui bus program is our fixed route system, and that is contracted out to Roberts, Hawaii, and we have a total of 14 fixed routes, and the fixed route service is basically the large buses that travel around Maui Island on a fixed time schedule. So primarily within the Kihei area, we have 2 routes that services the area, so the Kihei Islander and the Kihei Villager route. So you can go to the next slide. So for our fixed route system, we've been seeing a decline in ridership since 2012. 2012 was during the recession where the gas prices were increased, and I guess a lot of people were choosing transit at that time. Since then, with approval from council, there was a change in rates and fees, and since we started to charge more, we started to see that there was a decrease in ridership. But also public transit at a national level, it's kind of in line where it's been decreasing annually instead of increasing. And then what's interesting, I guess, everywhere, right? Because of the pandemic, we saw a huge drop in ridership during the pandemic, and then we're starting to see an increase where we're starting to have return in ridership. So I think it's a little hard to see, but during the pandemic, for our fixed route system, we saw a little under 1 million boardings, and then last fiscal year that we just ended finished at a little over 1.1 million boardings. So you can go to the next slide. So like I was mentioning earlier, our fixed route system, we have 2 main routes that services the Kihei area. Kihei Islander, that route actually starts at Queen Kaahumanu Shopping Center in Kahului, and it goes down Punane Avenue, Maui Veterans Highway, and then to South Kihei Road. So within the Kihei area, most of our routes services bus stops along South Kihei Road, all the way to Wailea, and then back to Kahului. And that's the Kihei Islander. Our Kihei Villager route is primarily stationed within the South Maui area. It starts at Piilani Village Shopping Center, and then goes towards South Kihei Road, and then goes to North Kihei Road to Ma'alaya Harbor, and then comes back to South Kihei, back to Piilani Village Shopping Center. So I just wanted to provide some data in terms of passenger boardings from this past fiscal year, where we saw a little under 200,000 boardings for the Kihei Islander, and then a little over 36,000 boardings on the Kihei Villager. The Kihei Villager route, while it's not highly utilized, it is an important route because it's basically the connector route that links Kihei to the Lahaina bus. So because it gets to Ma'alaya, that bus meets up with the Lahaina Islander bus so that people can transfer between Lahaina to Kihei versus having to ride all the way into Queen Kaahumanu Shopping Center to transfer. Another interesting fact is that the Kihei Islander route is typically within the top 3 highest ridership routes in the Maui bus system. Typically, the highest ridership is West Maui Islander, followed by Lahaina Islander, and then Kihei Islander. So those Kihei Islander typically makes up the top 3 in terms of ridership routes. You can go to the next slide. So over the past few years, we're doing a comprehensive operations analysis with a consultant, Nelson Nygaard, that took a look at our current routes that we provide in the Maui bus system, and through public outreach analyzing data, they made some recommendations on how we can better improve our system to provide better service to our ridership. And so for within the South Maui area, one of the changes that they recommended was to extend our Kihei Villager route to start servicing the residential area in North Kihei on the Mauka side of Piilani Highway. As of right now, again, most of our routes only services down South Kihei Road. So if you live Mauka side of the highway and you want to catch the fixed route system, you have to technically walk to South Kihei to ride the bus. So, so that's in the works on making some changes to start servicing the northern part of, I guess, in South Maui. I guess some things to consider that I'll get to in the future slides is that a lot of the subdivisions were built before our transit system got started here in Maui. So a lot of, one of the roads that we would be going down in that northern subdivision would be like Halekai Street. Halekai Street is a residential street that doesn't have any sidewalks on either side. So a lot of times, a lot of residents will park their cars on both sides of the street, and then you have people walking down the middle of the road. So there's some concerns with us expanding our services there, but we understand that there is a need for providing services in areas that have to walk quite far to get to South Kihei Road. Also, not part of this comprehensive operation analysis, but in other short-range transit plans recommendations, some of our consultants also propose having, when the North-South Collector Road gets built, that could be another transit line where we could provide services to the areas closer to Piilani Highway. So again, people don't have to walk from Piilani Highway area down to South Kihei Road. So just those are also other discussions that came through when we were working with our consultants. So you can go to the next slide. We also provide our commuter service. Most of the routes for the commuter services start within Central Maui, and it services in the morning. It takes people from Central Maui, or I guess from upcountry and Central Maui, and then primarily buses people out to West Maui. And most people that utilize the commuter service are people that work in the visitor industry, so they work at the hotels. So a lot of our riders are people that will catch it in the morning. We'll drop them off in Ka'anapali, Lahaina, Ka'anapali, Napili, out to Kapalua, and then pick them up in the afternoon and bring them back. But we do have 2 routes that does provide services to, I guess, the Kihei area. So if you can go to the next slide. Oh, okay. Well, so I guess this is our ridership, I guess, for the commuter service. So again, because of the pandemic, we saw a substantial decrease in ridership from fiscal year 2020, when everything started to shut down. The last 3 months of fiscal year 2020, we basically almost had 0 commuter service. And then in fiscal year 21, I think we had 5 runs suspended, and we were only providing 2 runs on a daily basis. And then this fiscal year, we restarted up again, where we're providing all 7 runs every day. So it's starting to increase. But yeah, when all the hotels and the whole visitor industry shut down, basically our commuter service went to almost 0. So next slide. So again, yeah, so this is where I was getting to. So for our commuter service, we do have a few routes that services the Kihei area. So we have one route that starts up service from closer to Wailea. It travels down South Kihei Road, picks up commuter riders at our Maui bus stops along South Kihei Road, and then it heads out to Kapalua. So that's one route. So a Kihei Kapalua commuter route picks up in the morning, drops them off in the afternoon. And then we also have One route that starts up in Haiku, goes down to War Memorial Stadium to pick up more passengers and then heads out to South Maui and it ends in Wailea, and then we have the same return in the afternoon. But from fiscal year 22, our South Maui ridership, and it may be because when the pandemic hit, we actually had all of the South Maui routes suspended due to low ridership. When we brought it back, I think it's now just trying to convince people that this is another option for them. I also think that a lot of the workers in the South Maui area at the hotels, the hotel workers, maybe they're not bringing a lot of them back full-time or need them to come every day. So I think that's part of why the ridership is down for our South Maui routes. Next slide. So I guess for community plan discussions, we are currently building a transit hub in Central Maui near Queen Kaahumanu Shopping Center. We are moving out of the mall to a new hub on the outside of the mall near the Kahului Public Library. But part of the reason why I wanted to bring up the discussion of future transit hubs is that within the South Maui area, it would be good for us to consider locations where we, the county, could provide better service with a expanded transit hub. So I guess right now, if you think about a transit hub or a transfer station for South Maui, it would be at the Piilani Village Shopping Center. So right now we provide services. We stop there, we allow transfers, and with the transfers, that's all on private property. Similarly at Malai Harbor Village, that's also another transfer point. That's the link between Lahaina, the Lahaina buses, and then to South Maui. But I guess just as a discussion point, and I think it might be the next slide, things that we can consider when we're looking at a transfer center or a transit hub is that it allows an area for buses to allow riders to transfer between. It's a safe, shaded, convenient waiting area, possible restroom facilities, a possible park and ride that's accessible by other modes of travel, walking, biking, as well as one of our challenges is that as we're trying to move towards electric buses, we would like the ability to possibly have en-route charging, and en-route charging makes it easier if we can put that in on our own, or I guess in a county. Like if we were to have en-route charging, we could install an en-route charger at our transit hub if we had one built in South Maui. So that allows us to then, if we dwell at the hub for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, it can provide an extra so many miles, and then we can have an electric bus continuously run the entire route the entire day. As of right now, we don't have any electric buses in our fleet yet, but if we were to throw on an electric bus for the Kihei route, most likely it would be charged within Central Maui. You would have to drive it out to Kihei, so you're already losing mileage, and then you're going to throw it on the route. It's going to eventually drain the battery, and then we have to send it back to Kahului and send another bus out to continue the run. So if we had the ability to do en-route charging at a future transit hub, then electric bus would be much more efficient in the sense that during the day, when electricity is the cheapest, you can charge the buses when we dwell, and then we can keep on running our buses. So next slide. So I like to share this survey results. So this was actually done during the Maui MPO was updating their long-range transportation plan, and so some of the comments that came back, in terms of riding on the bus on Maui would be better if, and 51 says that if the bus came more often, 49% said that they want better bus shelters, 38% said early and later times. So essentially, it's how can we make our bus system more convenient and more comfortable would most likely solicit more ridership. So it's a great picture, and I like to share this survey results. And we always often take a look at this to see how we can better our system. So next slide. So again, just to kind of recap, things to consider when you guys are doing your community plans, when we want to do new routes. We like to consider, or for consideration would be interconnected subdivisions. We like through streets. It's hard for us to provide services if there's a lot of cul-de-sacs. And then having sidewalks, bike paths, street lightings. I guess some of the things again is if we were to pick up and drop off people on a certain street and there's only a sidewalk on one side, then we can provide people dropping off, picking up on one side with the sidewalk. But of course, when we put a stop on the other side, you're basically dropping them off onto an area where it's unimproved. So we do like to support sidewalks on both sides, but we also like to provide services if developments are built with collector streets, so we don't actually have to go down residential streets. And then, of course, higher frequency, earlier, later hours of service, possible new transit hubs, park and rides, and also part of our department, we also oversee improvements of our bus stop locations. So we do have a bunch of bus stop shelters installed along South Kihei Road in South Maui, and we have future locations as well that we plan to improve. And for our bus stop shelter improvement projects, we work closely with the Department of Public Works. And so if there are times where Public Works is going in and installing improvements to like sidewalks, sometimes they'll go in and be able to put in the infrastructure where they put in a concrete pad for us, and all we have to do is we'll go in and then put the shelter up. So we try to work with them so we're not going in after they improved it to then, then for us to then go in and have to bring it up to our standards to then build a shelter. So we've been trying to work with Public Works on that. And then just for your information, funding sources, we're funded by the general fund, we're funded from the highway fund, and then we also get Federal Transit Administration funds as well. Next slide. And then if you guys have questions, I'm here tonight to answer any questions, but this is our contact information if you want to reach out to us, or I guess planning department can also ask us more questions if any of you have any questions in the future at a later time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Do we have any questions from the, same group, same order, and Mike first.
Mahalo, Chair. Mahalo, Mark, for coming here and presenting to us. First, addressing the potential for running the buses east and west in North Kihei. We had communicated a lot with your deputy, and before COVID struck, he had explained to us about this spur that was going to use Ohukai and Kaiwahini. And for years before that, we had tried to get a bus route up there because before Mr. Zaro built this beautiful school up here, the Kihei Charter School was up in that industrial area. And we would all watch the students take the bus and get off at South Kihei Road in Ohukai, and then have to take the treacherous walking path up Ohukai with no sidewalks. So hearing that you guys are looking to have sidewalks, I think everybody seems to be in favor of that, so that's a good thing. But that never happened back then. But when he mentioned this was going to be a good thing, we felt so too, is we were getting these affordable housing projects up in those areas, and having the one that's on the Hukai, about to open. We knew that was coming, and then the one up at the top of Kawahine was above that. So having the bus run up and down there really looked great. And then of course COVID hit, and then everything went backwards, just as you said. You had to start reducing. So we approached him again more recently and said, we understand now this is coming about. And our understanding is he felt before the end of this, of the next calendar year, 2023, that these routes would be in place. Is that correct? Is that the plan, that you do expect to have those in place?
I would say that I would say that that is correct. Yes.
One more question is, with the commuter buses, we all see that when we're talking about the Pialani Highway, how we have, now it's pronounced because of the construction, but even before, we see that all these hotel workers drive down the highway and back, and you tend to think of that, wow, if there was mass transportation, and anecdotally, I can say I walk along a street that parallels the highway in the morning, and you can see the cars are stuck in there, and 95% are single persons in each car. So we see how inefficient that system is. But we weren't even aware that you mentioned that there is a commuter route running from Wailea, I think you said on South Kihei Road. Could you address that again? I wasn't quite clear on that, please.
Yes. Okay, so we have two routes. So if there are a lot of commuter drivers coming into South Maui to work at the hotels, they could possibly catch our service that starts out at, it actually starts in Haiku, but those people will reach War Memorial Stadium. They can transfer to different buses or commuter buses, and then people that want to come to Kihei would then catch that bus, then would head to Kihei, and then it would provide services to hotels out to Wailea, and then it ends there, and then it provides services in the afternoon for pickup, and then goes back to War Memorial Stadium and then back. I guess in terms of the other route, it actually starts in Kihei, and then it picks up people along South Kihei Road and then takes them to Kapalua. So that's the one those people are heading to West Side for work, and then they come back in the afternoon, and we drop them off again along South Kihei Road.
Mahalo.
Thank you. And Wayne?
Thank you, Mark. I don't know who set policy in regards to public transportation. I realize that we're trying to get people to stop using the American horse. Why is there not a policy that allows you to drive to the airport? Rent a car, lobby?
For clarification, are you saying...
Why you not go to the airport and back?
So our Maui bus system, we actually do provide service to the airport. But to get from the airport to West Side or to South Side, you still have to transfer at our transit hub in Kahului. So there's two routes that provide services to the airport, and then from Ka'amanu Shopping Center, you can then catch your buses out to the West Side or to South Side.
You know, Maui has a lot of beautiful beaches, and we may not see them due to global warming. Is there a reason why you don't have bus stops that stop at Wailea or along the South Shore up to Kaanapali, along the beaches?
Going out to the west side, yeah, we don't have any. We have one stop at Ma'alaya, and then the next stop is then at Wharf Cinema Center. So yeah, so we don't actually have any stops along that coastline. I guess what we look at is how can we safely stop and then offload and unload people. So we don't actually have. I guess we would have to work closer with the state to see where we can provide that types of bus stop locations. Because I guess what's hard too is if we do provide services to those areas, we definitely want to have an area where it's lighted, it's safe for people to wait at, and then we're also able to stop safely to load and unload passengers as well. So yeah, we don't have any stops along that Honopilani Highway up for that reasons.
You mentioned a drop in ridership. Is there a reason why not you don't have a drop in ridership? And if you could speculate, what is the reason?
I guess looking at our trends, the highest drop in ridership was due to the pandemic when we suspended a bunch of different routes. When we shut down Maui, and then we started to reopen our routes, except for the fact that we were requiring at the time where they could only use public transit for essential services, or to go for essential trips. But since then, we've starting to see an increase. But I guess from a national trend, I guess if the transit system isn't convenient for you and you're not required to use the transit system, you most likely would then hop in your car and drive places because it's easier to hop in your car, drive to a place, park, and then you're already at your destination versus having to ride around in a bus that may take a little bit longer to get to where you need to go.
In regards to fare prices, is there a policy for a non-resident and a resident fare?
So,
and why don't you charge more to non-residents?
Okay, so that's a great question. So we don't have a resident or non-resident fare. Because we receive federal funds, we can't create a local pass. But working with the county council who sets our rates and fees, if you buy a monthly pass, the price is much more reduced than if you were to pay every day to use the same system. So I guess if you are a local resident that uses the bus system, it's beneficial for you to buy the monthly pass than to pay a daily fare for a shorter period of time.
We talk about the impact to Hana on the highway. Have you ever thought about driving tourists to Hana or back? To alleviate traffic, the gridlock.
So we haven't looked at considering expanding our Maui bus service out to Hana. I guess that's something that could be discussed, but yeah, I guess in terms of an idea like that, there would have to be a lot more discussions on doing something like that.
Thank you.
Daniel?
Hi, Mark. The new bus route that is being recommended by your department, 15, is that funded so that you can actually implement the route in 2023? Is that correct?
Yeah, the Route 15 is currently funded. It is funded. It would just be a different route, a rerouting that would occur for that route. So right now we do have funding for that route, but the recommendation is to deviate from our current routing to then service that northern subdivision.
So that, in other words, it's within your budget to do that,
That's correct.
which is great. That's really served that underserved area. The other underserved area is just south of there, another very large community called Maui Meadows. In the 2020 census, there were 2,000 people that lived in that neighborhood. In your bus route study, did you take into account providing bus service to that neighborhood?
So as I mentioned earlier, that in some of our short-range transit plans, a future route that was discussed was one that would provide services along the areas that are built for the north-south collector road, and as it gets towards Wailea area, that route did actually provide some stops in Maui Meadows, the lower road in Maui Meadows. So that is a route that's been discussed. It's not funded, but has been discussed.
So the lower road, that'd be Akala.
That is correct.
Akala, so that's that could be another route in the future, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, and how far in the future would you anticipate? 2024?
I think it comes down to community outreach and community ask. And so a lot of times we sort of move forward with route recommendations based on ridership requests or community requests as well.
Yes, Wayne.
One of the most beautiful beaches is Little Beach and Big Beach. Why don't you have service to Big Beach and Little Beach? We could take a lot of visitors off our beaches and take them to McKenna Beach. Don't you have requests?
We haven't had requests out to Little Beach or Big Beach in McKenna. I guess one of the challenges too is when we do have a bus that gets sent out, we have to ensure that there's a way for us to be able to turn around. So we do like to make certain that routes have the ability where we're not having to stop and reverse to try and turn around. So I think getting out to McKenna to provide services there, we would have to determine a safe area where we can easily turn around to come back to town.
Roundabout.
Hey, Rob.
Thank you. Any more questions for Mark Moy?
So, this future South Maui hub, does it have to be in a county property or private?
Technically, it makes it easier if it is county property because we can control what we want to do with it. So, and it also makes it easier when it comes to utilizing federal funds. Federal funds, the feds don't like it when we spend money, federal monies, or I don't think they're going to allow us to spend federal monies on private property because unless we have a long-term lease or something like that, then if we have to relocate out, then then what happens to their investment? So a lot of times it's utilizing county land or county, like a county project. So if we did have land for us to build something like that that we control, then we could utilize federal funds.
Any further questions for Mark? Thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess that means our last presenter is Jordan Molina from the Department of Public Works.
Questions on planning, Mr. Chairman? Is there a reason why we don't have public works here?
Public Works is coming to the table right now. He's the next speaker.
Sorry.
Hello? Okay. Good evening. Glad to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to share with you folks. I do not have a presentation because I came to talk with you guys, and you guys already know plenty about public works, so I'm here to just get blasted and answer as best as I can. So who wants the first crack at it? Because I heard several questions already from the group, so I'm here to help you guys move along quicker as much as I can, so I'm here as your resource.
Mike is first up again, and then Wayne.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Excuse me, Wayne.
Sorry, Jordan Molina, Director of Public Works.
You didn't rate a sign, Jordan. I don't know why. You didn't rate a sign. Prejudiced by the planning department. Oh, there we go. Jordan, thank you for coming. And I'll start out with that very popular topic, the North-South Collector Road. Our understanding is the next two segments would run from Waipulani to the street that's going to be the entrance to the high school, and then the following one would continue on to Ka'ona'ulu. We had seen a presentation, I believe in 2020, that segment, that next segment going north from Waipulani was going to start in 2022. And then in 2021, we were advised, whoops, no, that's not correct. It would be 2024. And then shortly after that, MPO said no, it wouldn't be till 2025. So can you tell us what the status is now when we can expect to see that next segment of the North-South Collector Road, please?
Sorry, give me a sec. The latest tip, so for you who don't know, the tip is the project schedule for all the federal funding that comes for the road projects. That goes through the MPO for approval, and it's a 5-year funding program. And so right now, on the latest one, we have budgeted in FY25, federal fiscal year 25, so 2 years out, and that would be the first phase, like you said, from, I think it's Maui right now, to Kalani Hakoi. Then the next phase will be from Kulani Hakoi back to Ka'ona'ulu, and that'll complete the north segment. We are ready to start the environmental review process and the SMA process. So those technical studies that you need for those documents are being finalized. One of the big delays was the evaluation of roundabouts in lieu of traffic signals at all those intersections. And that, of course, prompted need for more land. And nobody's happy when the county comes knocking on your door asking you for more land. No matter how many of you all say the North-South Collector Road is great, the guy living on the corner whose fence I gotta take down is not having it. And so unfortunately a whole bunch of people that live in Pilani Village never like a meter. So we had to fight with them to get the access. So land issues is a challenge that delayed the project, but we're close. And the federal funding, we will be pursuing some of these federal funding programs to help fund this, because this first segment is 25 million, and I believe the next segment's about the same.
Mahalo. And Jordan, we're all aware that you just stepped into this and you're hearing about things that were 30 or 40 years ago that road was supposed to be built. So I feel personally it's pointless to ask you why you weren't here. Some of this may have been before you were born, but we appreciate you telling us the status now in your position. So mahalo for that.
Chair, if I may respond.
Sorry, what was that?
If I may respond with a comment.
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, so like Rory pointed out previously, our idea of roads have changed, right? So before we were just dropping down travel lanes for vehicles, and North-South Collector was going to be a 4-lane vehicle road. That changed to including the bikeway as part of it, so that dynamic changes. All of those changes take time to reconcile and change your project to get up to speed. So a lot of the components in this plan that talk about taking old roads that were just vehicle roads and turning them into these multimodal roads, it's not easy to retrofit old stuff for anybody who's tried to work on a house or a car. These projects are difficult to deliver. Thank you.
Wayne, you had a question too? No, Daniel does.
Aloha, Director Molina. Earlier, one of our testifiers talked about the raised islands in South Kihei Road. I know those islands have a name, it's a specific name. And the issue of, for example, not being able to see the islands during flood events and people getting stuck on the islands. Not the island they want to get stuck on, but sometimes they get stuck on it. So could you tell us what what those islands are called? I know how many of those islands are going to be built as part of the South Kihei Road Rehabilitation Project? And how are you going to solve the issue of it being a hazard during flood events? Thank you.
So those are referred to as median islands, and the concept is to break up the crossing distance for the pedestrians. So instead of crossing 60 feet of pavement, you have a 20-foot section, a break, and a 20-foot section. And so that is one of the complete streets solutions to help improve pedestrian safety. The project's not over yet, so each of those will have a sign with the flashing beacons on them to locate those islands. So when the flood happened, we were mid-project, so we didn't have those signs there to alert people. But that is a learning lesson that we learned, that placing median islands in flood-prone areas, we got to be cognizant of people traversing when it's flooding and not being able to see those things. We also did get a lot of grumbles from the fire department for the same reason, and similarly because it's an obstruction that prevents them from passing. So we have this conflict between emergency services wanting to go fast and pedestrian safety, which dictates slowing people down. And so that's a learning lesson for the department on how to better plan these kinds of improvements, particularly in the flood areas. Thank you.
And how many are going to be built?
I believe all the ones
they're all in place
already in the current project, yeah.
So since we're on the topic of things which were important 24 years ago and kind of still are, slightly later, 4 years ago, we were promised 1 mile of sidewalks on South Kihei Road. And so far we have not 1 inch more than we had 4 years ago. So when will we have them?
Great question. This goes into our ability to deliver on projects and all these actions in these plans, because unfortunately, we are not unified in trying to get these projects delivered. There are many obstacles from our sister agencies included, that keep us from delivering these projects timely. And I will say we did add some sidewalks by Lipoa, so it's not 0 inches. Thank you.
Any other questions for the, yes, Wayne?
Recently, we've seen flooding on South Kihei Road. Is your drainage channel, was it built to deal with the flooding, or was it inadequate because you did not have the correct sizing of the channel basins? I point to the one by ABC store that backed up, flooded condos, you name it.
So in Kihei, for whatever reason, no drainage infrastructure was planned from before. Unlike you see in West Maui, we have a series of these large stormwater facilities across the region that help manage what goes on the lower roads and below the highway. We do not have anything comparable in Kihei. And so we have to start from scratch. And unfortunately, there's limited space to accommodate how much flood comes down Haleakala in these basins. South Kihei Road is a very old road. The county inherited it. And it's a tough situation and an expensive one. We have the Kihei Drainage Master Plan. All that really did for us is give us an idea of how big of a flood event we need to try and manage. It is by no means the final answer to all of this. So yeah, in short, yeah, there is no infrastructure there. And then a question with South Kihei Road, which we're struggling with, is the idea of managed retreat. So am I trying to build to protect this road, or am I trying to get out of here? It's an unclear message at this point, how to treat these things. And then another thing to think about is, what time scale are we talking about? Life of the pavement is 20 years. Is it worth to save another 20 years of function, or am I trying to abandon for the 100-year solution today? These are complicated questions that I don't think anybody has a good answer to at this point.
Are there answers to the problem where in other municipalities they have created situations to deal with flooding in wetlands?
I mean, I know there are. I mean, there's definitely engineering solutions. The challenge becomes what fits the community as far as which tools on the toolbox we like to utilize or prefer to utilize. One of the pushes from the Kihei Drainage Master Plan was use of more ecological solutions that require space. We don't have space. And so we got to try and balance the existing conditions, what we have to work with, and figure out what works best between all the options that may work.
Any more questions from the members? Cody?
Hello. Are there any current solutions to, or are there any ways that we can mitigate a lot of this wastewater from going into our mulivais, into those, the mulivais? Because I noticed on a couple of different occasions, like pulling out like hundreds of pounds of dead fish in there from botulism and things like that. So one of the things that I really want to try and maybe even create an action item for later, but is how can we direct wastewater away from our mulivais?
So I just want to clarify wastewater versus stormwater. Wastewater is doo-doo water. It's not what we're talking about coming down the mountain. As far as keeping the stormwater out, so one of the recommendations in the drainage master plan is a series of basins, Malka, to help catch the water, catch the sediment before it comes down through Kihei. Not only to keep the sediment out, but that reduces the amount of flooding that hits South Kihei Road in the lower areas if we can control the flows of Malka. That has its own ecological concern about intercepting that water. But we don't necessarily have the space unless there is a strong effort to start condemning lands down in Kihei to make room for the water, which I haven't had a strong appetite, heard there's a strong appetite for. And when you go to the meeting to talk about eminent domain, you know, those property owners are not going to be so happy. So yeah, it's a tough deal in Kihei, definitely.
Any more questions from the members? Wayne?
So you do have a drainage master plan, Malka, that will intercept water coming down from the mountain and redirect that water into drainage basins?
Yeah, so one of the solutions contemplated in that drainage master plan is looking at basins above the highway to intercept the gulches and send that water into these detention basins where the water can go back into the ground and keep that water from flowing further down below the highway, down South Kihei Road, so you don't have as much water inundating those areas. So that's the general concept behind it. And unfortunately, right now, we have open land up Malka where there is that opportunity, because you don't necessarily have that opportunity everywhere to go build these basins, and they need to be big. Like Kulani, Hakoi, Waipuilani, those are huge drainage ways, and those basins got to be really big.
Maybe you don't have the freedom to say what you feel. You heard about someone in this committee planning a Malka roadway. Your thoughts?
That's a loaded question. I guess one thing that I have concern about this plan is the economics behind it. Is that really the best use of our money to go build miles of new road out to upcountry or wherever? From public works standpoint, like, if we get hard time to keep up with what we got already, and so to add all this extra stuff onto us is a big ask. It is one way to resolve some of the issues in Kihei, the traffic issues. So yeah, it's a tough call. I don't know how to. I don't necessarily say yes or no, but it's a big decision for sure, and big investment.
Did the plantation, when it closed down, did they have any routes that they used to use going Malka?
I believe.
I only know of Ulupakula Road.
Yeah, so I guess that's the whole question of where is this road gonna land, right? On both ends. There is ag roads. I know several of them, going from Haile Maile to Kanaio. Which one people support, are willing to deal with, willing to develop? That's why you're here, I think.
Cody? Cody had a question? Okay. Any more questions from the members? Daniel?
So basically, we live in a cul-de-sac. One way in, or two ways in, two ways out. We keep adding more and more infrastructure, and then, residents on the cul-de-sac, putting a lot of stress on the two corridors that we have already. Basic Public Works is responsible for South Kihei Road, and I know you're doing what you can to upgrade South Kihei Road. Is there any other, besides South Kihei Road and the North-South Collector Road, is there any other major projects that you are working on in South Maui or plan to work on in the near future?
Off the top of my head, no. I mean, North-South Collector is the big project for Kihei and for Public Works. We don't do a lot of new roads. We're busy just trying to keep things functional, the existing stuff functional. So yeah, North-South Collector is the big road for us. And so like the third road up Malka even further, you know, I guess there's still a question of whose road that would be. Would it be the state's road or would it be the county's road to develop? I think that's a policy for, you know, this body, appropriate for this body to discuss.
You had another question, Daniel? No. Okay, any other questions from members for Department of Public Works? Okay, thank you. So I want to open, if you could stay, are you able to stay or?
Yeah, but if you don't mind, I just have a couple of closing comments.
Okay.
So as it relates to these policies, I think it's important that you guys understand what the existing condition is, because when I read a lot of these policies, we do a lot of this stuff already, and some of them are redundant. And so to specify what is it different that you want to see happen. Second thing would be priority. Like, this is billions of dollars in here. 20 years is not that long when you really think about project delivery. What is the priorities to get done? I have 4 engineers for all the county to do all these projects. I would need 3 of them just for this plan right now. So resources, like, get very specific. Some of these real broad general ideas don't really help us, or they're things that we're already doing in one form or another, so it's not really helping us further the goal by them being so broad. And I would encourage you not to repeat what's in the countywide policy plan and the Maui Island plan, because a lot of those things are already stated and now being redundant into your plan. So we can kind of fast forward and get more into the nitty gritty of what you know, something like Public Works is expected to deliver over the next 20 years. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So is there anyone in the audience, we're done with this part, I think. Let's open up to the audience. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to testify on what you just heard about transportation? Yes, please give your name if you're willing to do that.
Zandra Amaral Kraus. I live in North Kihei, born and raised on the island of Maui. I live abutting Haleakala Ranch in North Kihei. And I'd like to first address the bus thingy. Where I live, where the gas station is, would be a perfect place for the county to set up a hub there. And it's hard because, you know, they only got limited resources and we pay for it, so they do the best they can. But to go on regarding the roads, I think that we really, men and women, concentrate on the roads that facilitate the travel for our young men, women, and our local families. Right now, North Kihei, where I live, not Maui Meadows, not Wailea, not McKenna, but North Kihei is where is growing the most. That's where you have 12 projects in the pipeline. 1 road, Ohukai. 2 road, Kawahine, coming in and out of that area. I think that it should be stipulated that if they are going to build more homes, more industrial areas within the Okai, Ho'alike, Halikai, divisions, that area, they should either put roads on the STIP, the State Transportation Road Plan, or the county on arterial roads coming in and out. I'll tell you why. Because like was discussed here, someone had said, in the subdivisions, there are cars parked on both sides. If my house caught on fire, the fire trucks could never get through. We need wider roads. We need sidewalks. Our subdivisions, because the people who I live around are poor and I'm poor, we do not warrant sidewalks. Cost too much money. I beg to differ with you. So I humbly ask, and I look at you and I know many of you. I mean, I know your passions and I know you've got babies and opunas and children who suffer the same things we do. And that is a way to get in and out of Kihei. I suffered a fire behind my house at the ranch. Me, the Tavares, the Kaveh, I mean, everybody along that way. We're trapped. Because the fire came here, it went down Ohukai, in back of Hualike, and we were trapped. So we do need more roads. I
Time's
thank
up.
you for your...
Thank you.
I will conclude. Thank you, ma'am. We need roads to go with the growth, especially in North Kihei. We've got many representatives of South Kihei, but very few representatives from North Kihei, the poorer side of South Maui. So I humbly ask you guys, look, when they say develop, where? Amongst the poor, give them roads, give them safety. Thank you. Thank you.
Chair, can I?
Yes, question,
And I don't
clarifying
know.
question.
So no comment, but a clarifying question. Like it's a question comment together? I don't know, I'm just learning. So if I can say, Auntie Sandra, I know how you feel because I live in the same area. That's right. And so with that said, when you state your area is by the fire-prone area, is that area going to be developed somewhat? Because I know exactly where you live. So are you aware or of any development happening in there?
Yes, I have been in touch and met with the CEO and the real estate entity of Haleakala Ranch, of which my house abuts, and you know, Bebe. And they have testified to me and stipulated that they are in the process with the planning department of dividing the parcels from Ulupalakua all the way down to Auntie Z's gate to 3 parcels. And those 3 parcels will be bought by, there are 3 offers by Canadians. So you know it's going to be bought up. Whether affordable housing go in there, I don't know, Bebe. I don't think so. But nonetheless, once they subdivide and these new people who come in, like the Hayes came in on Ohukai, Mauka side, yeah? And they brought in all these heavy trucks and stuff, right, from the mango farm, which crowds our roads. And we know that unless we put stipulations and guidance and enforcements in place, sweethearts, we cannot stop the money from the mainland building homes with no roads. They don't care. All they care about is the kala.
If I may, Auntie, I'm sorry. Sure. The reason I asked that, and maybe, I don't know if this is for Jordan, but with new homes, if they're building, they have to build sidewalks or new subdivisions. Because where I live, they added a new area and they have to build a sidewalk. So that's the only reason I'm asking or just saying that prior they didn't have to, where you live, I live. But now, as far as I understand, I don't know if that's something that Jordan can answer, but I just wanted to throw that out there, that at least for the future, there could be sidewalks. I just was
As I
wondering.
understand, I asked the planner, which was a former planner from the county of Maui who handles the Hayes property. He told me, you know what, Xander, we don't got to do nothing. I'll tell you why. To go before the board, we need to develop 5,000 acres. And we're only going to develop 4,099. If that was not a slap in the face for us, the community.
Okay, thank you, Auntie. I appreciate it.
Mahalo for the questions.
Any other clarifying questions to the testifier? Okay, do we have an additional testifier? Yes.
Aloha, Chair Weltman, Vice Chair Kanahele, and members of the committee. My name is Ellen McKinley. I'll be really quick. I just had an idea about DPW being overworked and whether it's possible to take advantage of some of this enormous federal funding that's available and hire outside engineers and contractors to get some of these larger projects done, and whether that could be something that's referenced. One really minor change on page 30, change West Maui to South Maui in the third to the last sentence. On page 32, goal 2.1, maybe consider adding user-friendly to the complete, balanced, and connected transportation network. Some of the things that maybe weren't mentioned that I think would make it more user-friendly for public transportation would be having information readily available electronically and posted at bus stops about the schedules. And then ease of payment, you know, if people don't have exact change, are there methods to easily accommodate other payment methods? And I have seen bike racks on some buses, but I'm not sure how widespread that is. Thank you.
Would you mind stating your name?
Ellen McKinley.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Thank you. Any other testimony from the audience on this talks we just heard about transportation? Okay, so we're at 8:15, and can we take a break and continue, or if we take a break, are we just going to fall apart? Keep going? Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so I believe that we have finally come to the point where we're going to start looking at the text in front of us and say what we like and what we don't like, what we want to change. I just want to say first, though, that I thought that we were going to wrap up what we didn't finish last time at this meeting, but it turns out that we can't because the planning department is not prepared for that. It will be done on December 21st. So we have like a catch-up meeting for things which didn't finish here. So all the things that we asked for changes, new proposals, and also Everett's proposed change, we'll discuss at that time. Now we have to move on with this transportation. So just as a very opener, on page 30, so a lot of the content of this plan is copied verbatim from the West Maui plan. And that's okay, because a lot of good stuff was done there, but where it says West Maui, it should be changed to South Maui. So that's like on page 30, and then also in the beginning of the action section. So this plan is about South Maui, not about West Maui, even if a lot of the ideas are the same. Any other comments on page 30? Actually, I forgot. There's one thing I wanted to do. I feel this is very important in order for us to be able to be successful as a committee. And that's, I wanted to check. We had 4 items of homework for today. We had to review the policies, the actions, the town hall video, and the resource paper. So I'm going to ask first for policies. If you review the policies for today, please raise your hand. If you reviewed the actions for today, please raise your hand. If you reviewed the town hall video for today, please raise your hand. And if you had, you probably would have recognized almost everything that we heard today. Almost everything was in there. And finally, the resource paper for the transportation resource paper for today. Did you review that for today? That was part of your homework. Okay, thank you. So I really ask everyone to do your homework. It says explicitly on the schedule what to read for each meeting, and that'll help us get through these things much quicker. Okay, so on to page 31. Does anyone have any suggestions or changes for page 31? And on to page 32. This was the one, I believe, where Ellen had a suggestion for change at the bottom. Daniel?
Are we on? Sorry, what page are we on?
32.
32. Yeah, I have a comment on that. So the last sentence of why is it important? It reads, with this plan, the bicycle and pedestrian transportation network, sorry, that's not the last sentence. What is the last sentence? I guess it's, with this plan, the community intends to change the paradigm. Y'all see that sentence? Okay, so at the very where it says at the very end of the sentence, from Keiki to Kupuna, wheelchairs to bicycles and cars to public transit. Before wheelchairs and after Kupuna, I would like to add the phrase Keiki to Kupuna, walking to running, wheelchairs to bicycles, and cars to public transit. So I just like to include walking and running in there because that's how most of us get around. At least walking. So I just would like to, since we're discussing, we're not making motions on these, are we? On these changes. Do you want to make a motion?
You can make a motion. You can make a motion.
Okay. Okay, I make a motion to add walking to running where I said I wanted it in the last sentence of why is it important. That's my motion.
I
Do we have a
second.
second? Seconded by Jennifer. Okay. Any further discussion? Any objections? Okay, if I find it passes. Thank you. Anything else on page 32?
I had a clarifying question on 32.
Yes.
So in goals, it says a complete, balanced, and connected transportation network. Is the word balanced there? Is it there because it's synonymous with equity? Is that what you're trying to get to? Is that why you're using balance, equity? Because I see it used in that paragraph.
The balanced would be for balancing cars with pedestrians and wheelchairs with people walking. It is about equity, yes. You want to add and equity? No.
No, it's in the paragraph. I just want, the intention wasn't to make it synonymous with equity in that goal, right?
Yes, Lewa?
One of the testifiers on that same sentence had said something about adding in user-friendly. So she's sitting behind the cameraman. So I don't know, is that something we would, I mean, I would like to recommend to advocate for what she asked. Is this the correct page, 32 on that area? That is, yeah?
Yeah.
So I don't know as a testifier if we consider it, or do we as committee members speak on behalf of the testifier?
Someone on the committee has to
Okay.
propose it.
I'd like to propose that we add user-friendly, and if I heard her correctly, it would go after focusing on creating a user-friendly transportation network. Is that correct? Or if you could restate it, is that correct? Pardon me? Oh no, whatever you said was good, but so I just want to make sure we're advocating for you because I like that. After balance.
So do we have the exact text to be added and where? I think you need to propose that. Someone needs to propose that.
Wait. Yeah, Jennifer's going to rephrase it for us.
Oh, geez. Thank you. Let me find it again. We're talking about this first, the whole sentence. With this goal, South Maui is committed to improving existing and adding the word balanced transportation right there. User-friendly, not balanced. Sorry, I know we want to propose it officially, but I'm not 100%. What is the word? Do you want to try it? Okay, so I'd like to propose that we change this sentence to say, with this goal, South Maui is committed to improving existing transportation systems and increasing access to a greater variety of transportation choices. South Maui will have a more balanced transportation system that relies less on cars and more on other modes of transportation, leading to a happier, healthier, and safer community. Is that correct?
Sorry, Jennifer, I don't think so, and I apologize for confusing you. So let me just restate it again. So if it is on the first paragraph, the last sentence, so with this plan, the community intends to change that paradigm, focusing on creating a user-friendly transportation network that is safe, comfortable, and accessible. So I would like to propose that we add in user-friendly after creating a user-friendly transportation network. So inserting the word user-friendly before transportation network.
Okay. So just to restate it, make sure I understand. So we're just adding the word user-friendly before transportation network. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any objections to just adopting this? Okay, fine, then adopted, that change. Anything else on page 32? Okay, now we get into policies. And just based on what the discussion we had earlier today, I would urge you to think about, is this really, and also actually building on what Jordan Molina said, let's not put redundancy in here, and let's not put in here things which we can't enforce, which are vague or can't be enforced. Let's put in things here which are important to us in Maui, a few things which are really important that we can really follow up on. But I'm not going to out of hand reject any of them. I'll leave that all up to you. So we'll go through them one by one. And so I would urge you to not just say, oh, that sounds good, because in my opinion, these all sound good. Every single one of them. Every one of them. But that doesn't mean that the outcome is going to be, the best would be we just adopt all of them as they are. So the first one is 2211. Improve South Maui's active transportation network by implementing a multimodal transportation system that includes a bus transit hub and incorporates complete streets, greenways, multi-use paths, and sufficient public transit coverage that allows residents and visitors to move more safely, effectively, and comfortably within South Maui. Floor is open. So what I'm just doing is kind of the opposite of what I said, because if we deal with them one by one, like I said, they're all going to sound good. We're all going to say, yes, let's keep them all. To do this really, to do it well, we would need to actually be comparing them to each other and saying, well, this one actually is pretty much the same thing as that other one. But I don't have a way to do that if we haven't all read these and prepared. 2.1.2, support increased access to micro-mobility solutions such as bike share, electric scooters, shuttles, etc.
I had a question on that
Yes.
one. So, bike share, electric scooters. What is? Can you explain what the thought is behind that? Bike share and electric scooters, because now a lot of people use electric scooters. I see them, electric bikes. So they're already using them. So what is the thinking behind this policy?
Go ahead.
I'm going to answer this honestly, and the person who put this policy in is no longer with the department, and so it would just be to support the land uses, I guess, with the micromobility solutions.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's, I mean, based on the discussion we had earlier, this is a policy, not an action, so. Policy 2.1.3, support adoption of mechanisms to fund transportation improvements such as special districts, increases in car rental surcharges for visitors, and traffic impact fees so new projects pay their fair share of transportation system improvements. Mike?
I mean, we've seen surcharges added to the car rental. Council approved that and they instituted it. And I'm not sure exactly what happened. I guess it was probably COVID. But when we asked for South Maui and saying, well, are we going to get part of this car rental fee? The answer was no, it's all going to West Maui because they're in greater need than South Maui. So I think it would have to be addressed again. It certainly seems that this is the kind of thing that we as residents are saying that all these visitors use our facilities. I mean, yes, they pay, but they're using the roads, and it's not necessarily the visitors' fault. It's the system we have here. They're almost forced to rent a car. They come into the airport, and here's the big rental facility. And yes, there's a bus, but you can't get your luggage on the bus. So then they say, well, we have no choice. We're going to use it. But these rental cars are using the roads. And we saw with COVID how many of those cars there are when they were packed at the airport land. So I think that's a good thing to continue. But we want to make sure for South Maui that if we add more car rental surcharges, that some of the funding is going to come here. We are a big part of the visitor industry in South Maui. So we should be us and West Maui should be the prime beneficiaries of such charges. Mahalo.
Rob.
Anything more on 2.1.3?
Yep. Rob.
Oh, yes, Brennan.
So, what Mike was sharing is, yeah, I get this itch about, with all our, dollar all the dollar amount we create in South Maui. And recently we had the parking, by Manakai. That gonna be paid parking. So my question was to certain ones in the department, where that money goes for that parking. So I think it goes to Parks and Rec. For me, I would like to see, if you're gonna do this, right, what we're talking about, that I like make sure that whatever fees that we create in South Maui, that it stays here. Because I think in the past, I think some of that goes elsewhere. And that's just me. I don't know how to word that. Because I would rather we, as a community, what we generate through fees or taxes, that through tourism, that it stays here in South Maui. And we utilize that to improve our position, whether it's infrastructure or towards transportation use.
Anything more on 2.1.3? Yeah. 2.1.4, establish safe routes interconnecting South Maui. Safe routes are primarily street networks that safely accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists of all ages to get from homes to schools, parks and beaches, shops, jobs, and other services. Brian, had a comment?
I would suggest or propose that we put support the establishment of instead of just establish.
That sounds more like a policy than an action, but what is the planning department's thought around that? What is the implication?
The wording here has to do with getting funding for safe routes to school, and having this policy helps with getting funding.
The question was whether it should say establish or to support the establishment of.
It should say establish safe routes. The establishing of safe routes is something we would do. I apologize. I need to go back through these policies and see which ones should actually be actions, because some editing was done after our final review, and then I just went through and made sure spelling errors were corrected. And some of these are clearly actions, and they're listed under policies. So if we could have a different meeting to discuss these, that would be appreciated.
I'm sorry, what exactly was the proposal?
If we as a department can go back through the policies and actions, there was some editing that should not have been done, and we would like to correct that, of where the policies and actions belong so that the words are correct. So it's time anyway, so if we can come back for another meeting on this, that would be appreciated.
Okay, I mean, that's definitely the case. Like the 219, support the extension of a continuous bike lane along Makana-Alanui and Makana Road. That's an action. It's very clearly an action.
That is actually a policy. That is a policy because it is saying when they're reviewing a plan, it's saying don't put a house where we think the bike lane's going to go. The word support can be both a policy or an action. It has to do with whether it's land use or whether it's time and money.
I think, well, that could be, but I think from the perspective of the community, it's an action. In other words, we can tell, has it been done or has it not been done?
And if you put it under actions, if I'm reviewing a plan and I don't see it under policies, I'll be like, no, they don't care.
So if we were to adjourn and ask you to rejuggle these, would we continue next time, or do we have to schedule that way in the future?
We will need to schedule this in the future because it's going to take a little time to rework which things are in the wrong location.
Well, we are falling behind. I think there's, yeah, I think we definitely need to. This is important. Like I said in the beginning, you know, what's an action, what's a policy, what things are actually enforceable. So getting it right is really, really important. So hopefully, if we give them this time, they'll help next time and the time after that. So, are there any objections to adjourning for now and coming back to this after the planning department has reconsidered what is not policy and what is an action? Okay, I find so is the case. And how do you like that? We're just past 8:30. We didn't actually adopt anything in this section, but we're at 8:30. Okay, but again, this does not mean that we're skipping over anything that we have talked about so far, including what we put out for correction and updates last time. We will get back to them. So with that, I find this meeting closed.